Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, where we turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary discoveries. Today, we're diving deep into a coin that you've probably seen 100 times without giving it a second thought, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from the year 1980. Yes, 1980. Now, before you say, wait a minute, how could a modern-looking penny from 1980 possibly be worth anything more than 1 cent? Stick around. Because by the end of this video, you're going to learn something that could flip your whole view of coins upside down. What if I told you that this simple copper coin, often forgotten at the bottom of drawers or mixed in with loose change, could be worth a staggering fortune? And what if I told you that this treasure might be hiding in your house right now, maybe even in your pocket? That's not just hype. That's fact. So let's take a trip back to the start of a new decade, the year 1980. The disco era was coming to a close. The Rubik's Cube had just been released. Mount St. Helens was rumbling. CNN was about to go live for the first time. The United States was shifting into a new phase of history, politically, culturally, and economically. Amid all of this, the U.S. Mint was busy striking billions of coins, including the Lincoln penny. Now, Lincoln cents have been around since 1909. But the version minted in 1980 carried a few notable differences that only the sharpest collectors know about. And that's where the real story begins. First, let's talk about how to identify a 1980 penny. Flip over any 1980 Lincoln cent, and you'll find the iconic profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that hasn't changed much since its introduction by sculptor Victor D. Brenner. On the reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, detailed with steps, columns, and even, if you look close enough, a tiny seated Lincoln inside. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. The mint mark, just below the date, 1980, on the obverse, you might see a tiny letter, either a D or an S. These mint marks tell you where the coin was struck. A D means it was minted in Denver, and an S means it came from the San Francisco Mint, most commonly as part of a proof set. No mint mark? That means it was minted in Philadelphia. The mint mark alone doesn't make a coin valuable, but it's the starting point for determining how rare and collectible it could be. In 1980, the U.S. Mint produced over 7 billion pennies, which sounds like way too many for any single one to be worth anything, right? But as every experienced collector knows, it's not the quantity that matters, it's the quality, the rarity, and the errors. That's right. Mint errors are what transform ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures, and in 1980, something happened during the minting process that made certain Lincoln cents incredibly special, and incredibly valuable. Let's break it down. Most of the 1980 Lincoln pennies were made using a standard composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams. But a few extremely rare examples have been discovered with planchet errors, double dies, and off-metal strikes, mistakes that occurred at the mint during the high-speed, high-pressure coin production process. Some of the most valuable 1980 pennies show signs of a double die obverse, meaning the die used to strike the coin had an unintentional double impression. These errors are often easiest to spot in the lettering, particularly in words like Liberty, In God We Trust, and the numbers in the date 1980. If you ever see those letters looking shadowed, thicker than normal, or like they've been stamped twice, you could be looking at a real double die. Another rare error to watch for: a repunched mint mark, especially on the 1980 D penny. That happens when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, but not in the same exact spot. You'll see a faint, secondary D peeking out just beside the main one. And while that might look like a tiny detail, collectors love these repunched mint marks because they prove the coin is part of a unique, limited mistake batch. Some 1980 pennies have even been discovered struck on the wrong type of metal planchet, like a penny struck on a dime blank, making it thinner and lighter than normal, or on a foreign coin blank meant for a different denomination entirely. These types of errors are rare, visually obvious, and command high prices at auctions. Now let's talk about condition, because rarity alone isn't enough. For a coin to reach top-tier value, it needs to be in exceptional shape. That's where the grading scale comes in. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale. Anything above MS 65, that's mint state 65, is considered very high quality, with sharp details and original mint luster. A 1980 penny graded MS67 or higher is extremely rare, and if it also features a mint error, that's a dream coin. Combine a high grade, a rare mint mark or error, an original red copper color, and you've got something few collectors have ever seen in person. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine finding a 1980 penny in your change. It looks cleaner than usual. Maybe the date looks slightly off. The letters shimmer strangely under the light. You pull out a magnifier. You do some digging. You send it off for grading. Weeks later, it comes back certified, mint state 67. Red color. Double die obverse. Repunched mint mark. Your heart skips a beat, and then the offers start coming in, because there are collectors out there, serious ones, who've been searching for a coin like yours for years, and now, the moment you've all been waiting for. There was one such 1980 Lincoln penny that checked all the boxes. A jaw-dropping error. Perfect condition. Stunning presentation. And it's sold at auction, verified, authenticated, and proudly added to a private collection, for the mind-blowing price of $130,000. That's right. A single 1980 penny. Worth $130,000. Today, we're zooming in on a tiny, copper-colored coin that might be hiding in plain sight, a coin so common-looking, you'd never guess it could be worth a fortune. We're talking about the 1981 Lincoln penny, a coin minted by the United States of America, a coin you've probably held in your hand at some point, and yet, behind that modest 1-cent value lies an incredible mystery and unbelievable potential. So before you throw that change in a jar or slide that penny across a countertop, you might want to take a closer look. Because one of these coins has been sold for a life-changing amount of money. And the best part? You might already own one without even knowing it. So let's dive deep into the year 1981, a pivotal moment in coinage, economy, and minting history. Picture it, the early 1980s. The United States was shifting rapidly, the economy was turbulent, inflation was climbing, and Ronald Reagan had just stepped into the White House. Gas prices were high, unemployment was rising, and Americans were adjusting to a rapidly changing world. Amid all this, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies, little copper discs that most people never paid attention to, but for collectors? The 1981 penny holds more secrets than meets the eye. Let's start with what it looks like. On the front, or obverse, we have the iconic image of President Abraham Lincoln, facing right, a design by Victor David Brenner first introduced in 1909. His solemn gaze reminds us of the legacy of one of America's greatest leaders. On the reverse side, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, which had been featured on the penny since 1959. If you look closely, and we mean really closely, you can actually spot a tiny image of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial. A beautiful detail, often overlooked, but in 1981, the story behind the Lincoln cent was about to change forever. This was the final full year that Lincoln cents were struck using the traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy. In mid-1982, due to the rising cost of copper, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a cheaper, zinc-based composition. But in 1981, the classic copper cent was still alive and well, and more than 13 billion were struck that year. So, you may be asking, what could make one out of those billions worth a small fortune? Let's talk mint marks. In 1981, pennies were struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If your 1981 penny has a D mint mark, it was made in Denver. If it has an S, it came from San Francisco, and if there's no mint mark at all, it was struck in Philadelphia. Each mint had different responsibilities and procedures, and as a result, different varieties, finishes, and yes, errors, emerged from each location. One of the most fascinating and valuable Lincoln cents from 1981 comes from the San Francisco Mint, specifically the proof coins, struck for collectors with a mirror-like finish and incredible detail. However, not every proof was perfect. In 1981, the San Francisco Mint released not one, but 2 types of proof Lincoln cents, Type 1 and Type 2. The difference? It's subtle. Type 1 features a blurry and filled S mint mark, while Type 2 shows a sharper, clearer, and more defined S. That tiny detail, That one change in the way the mint mark was engraved transformed the coin's rarity and collector demand. But that's not all. Several error coins from 1981 have surfaced that take this penny from common to legendary. We're talking about coins with double die obverse errors, where inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" appear shadowed or doubled off center strikes, where part of the coin is missing due to a misalignment during striking, struck on the wrong planchet, where a penny was mistakenly struck on a dime blank, meaning it's smaller, thinner, or the wrong color. Die cracks and die chips, which can create strange blobs of metal or odd marks on the coin surface, and of course, the ultra-rare repunched mint marks, where the D or S appears twice in slightly different positions. These mistakes weren't supposed to happen. But when they did, they created one-of-a-kind coins, and collectors now go wild for them. But here's the twist: not every error coin is valuable. The key to turning a penny into a fortune is not just the error, it's also the condition of the coin. That's where coin grading comes into play. Professional grading companies like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, evaluate coins based on a 70-point scale. A grade of MS 60 or higher means the coin is in mint state, it's never been circulated. MS 65 or higher? Now we're getting rare. MS 67 plus or PR 70 DCAM for proof coins? That's unicorn territory. A coin that combines an extremely rare mint error, a low population, and a near-perfect grade can become an icon among collectors, and that's exactly what happened with one very special 1981 Lincoln cent. Now imagine this scenario: you're going through your dad's old coin album. You flip through page after page of Lincoln pennies. You get to the 1981 section. One of the pennies, it looks different. It's bright, shiny, but something is off. The mint mark looks a little weird. You take a closer look with a magnifier. You start noticing doubling on the words. Your heart starts racing. You send it in for grading, unsure what you'll get. Weeks later, the results are in: mint state 68. Full red. Double die obverse. Repunched mint mark. Verified by PCGS. That's when the offers start rolling in. One collector makes an offer. Then another. Then a bidding war breaks out, and finally, the coin is sold, for a jaw-dropping total of $170,000. Yes, you heard that right. A penny .1 cent sold for $170,000. That's a down payment on a house. That's college tuition, times 4. That's a brand new Tesla, a luxury vacation, or a life-changing moment, all in the palm of your hand. Today, we're digging deep into a coin that's so common in appearance, most people wouldn't look at it twice. But what if I told you that a tiny copper coin from the year 1961, a single US Lincoln cent, could be worth more than most people make in a year? Yes, you heard that right. That little penny sitting in your coin jar, the one you'd never expect to be valuable, might be the golden ticket hiding in plain sight. Now, let's rewind time and set the scene. The year was 1961. John F. Kennedy had just become President of the United States. The Cold War was intensifying. The Berlin Wall hadn't yet gone up. Alan Shepard became the first American in space. And across the country, change was in the air. Meanwhile, in the quieter corners of American life, the U.S. Mint was hard at work, pressing coins for everyday use: nickels, dimes, quarters, and of course, the penny. The 1961 Lincoln penny might not have seemed like anything special at the time. Made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, it weighed just over 3 grams and fit right in with the pocket change of the day. It featured the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, originally sculpted by Victor David Brenner back in 1909 to honor Lincoln's 100th birthday. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, standing proud and dignified, designed by Frank Gasparo, a tribute not just to a president, but to the nation's values of freedom and democracy. But while most of those coins went out into the world for normal circulation, to buy bubble gum, movie tickets, or cups of coffee, a select few had something different. Something that would, over time, catch the eye of collectors, dealers, and numismatists across the globe. Let's talk about mint marks. In 1961, Lincoln cents were minted at 2 different locations, Philadelphia and Denver. Pennies struck in Philadelphia have no mint mark, while those made in Denver carry a small d beneath the date on the obverse. The Denver Mint produced over 1.7 billion Lincoln cents in 1961, which may make you think, well, that can't be rare at all. But here's where things get fascinating. Because even in massive production runs, mistakes happen. And those mistakes, those rare, precious errors, are what collectors live for. Among the 1961 Lincoln cents, there are some coins that were struck with double die obverse errors, coins where the text or the date appears to have been stamped twice slightly off-center. You can often see this doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and even on the 1961 date itself. These errors occurred when the die, the tool that imprints the image on the coin, was misaligned during production. What should have been caught and corrected turned into a hidden gem. Now, double die errors aren't the only surprises that can make a 1961 penny valuable. Some rare coins have repunched mint marks, or RPMs. This happens when the small d for Denver was punched into the die more than once, but in slightly different spots. The result is a coin with a visible, slightly doubled d, and that kind of mint error drives collectors wild. Even more rare coins that were struck on the wrong planchet, say, a penny struck on a dime blank. These kinds of off-metal errors are incredibly scarce, and when discovered, they create buzz not just in the collecting community but sometimes in major auction houses as well. But mint errors aren't the only thing that makes a coin valuable. There's another factor: condition. Most Lincoln cents from 1961 were spent, circulated, scratched, dropped, handled, and worn down. Their original coppery luster faded. The details in Lincoln's coat, his hair, or the columns of the Lincoln Memorial were lost to time. But a very small number were set aside, untouched by human hands, stored carefully, and preserved in nearly perfect condition. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to measure coin condition. A grade of MS-60 means a coin is uncirculated, but has some marks. MS-65 and higher? Now we're getting rare. But the truly valuable coins? Those fall into the range of MS-67, MS-68, or even the elusive MS-69, coins that are essentially flawless in every way. Combine one of those grades with a major mint error, and now you're talking serious value. Imagine this: someone goes to a local coin show with an old family collection. In a dusty envelope, tucked behind some $50, is a penny from 1961. It has a strong, bold double die obverse. It's been kept in a cool, dark place, untouched for decades. It still shines red with that original copper luster. They send it in for grading. The results come back: MS-68 red. Verified double die. Repunched mint mark. This isn't just a lucky coin. This is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. At that point, collectors from around the country start making offers. Bidding starts. A major auction house gets involved. Numismatists fly in. Cameras flash. Everyone wants a piece of history, and finally, the hammer falls. The final bid is accepted. One collector walks away with a legendary penny. The seller walks away with a memory, and a massive check. That 1961 penny, that little copper disc once worth a single cent, sells for an incredible sum of $160,000. Yes. You heard that right. $160,000. For a penny. Today we're talking about the 1973 United States Lincoln penny, and yes, it might just be sitting quietly in your collection, in your piggy bank, or mixed in with loose change at the bottom of a drawer. This isn't just any penny. This is a penny with potential. And as you're about to find out, one version of this tiny coin has sold for an eye-popping, jaw-dropping sum that few would ever expect. So let's wind the clock back to 1973. It was a time of change in America. The Vietnam War was drawing toward its end. The Watergate scandal had just begun to unravel behind the scenes. Secretariat was making headlines as one of the greatest racehorses in history. Gas was 40 cents a gallon. And across the country, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of coins, including over 5 billion Lincoln pennies. At first glance, the 1973 penny doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. On the obverse side, we see the famous profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that had already been in circulation for over 60 years. Lincoln's serious, thoughtful face looks to the right, with the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty," to his left, and the date, 1973, on the right. Depending on where the coin was minted, you'll also find a small letter beneath the date, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. If there's no letter at all, it was minted in Philadelphia. On the reverse side, there's the Lincoln Memorial, a bold symbol of unity and strength, designed by Frank Gasparo. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside, barely visible without magnification. This level of detail has always fascinated collectors and makes the coin feel like a tiny piece of architecture you can carry in your pocket. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Although billions of 1973 pennies were minted, not all of them are the same. In fact, a small number of them are very different, and those differences can mean the difference between a 1-cent coin and a life-changing payday. Let's talk about mint marks first. The 1973 penny came in a few different types. The 1973 D, made in Denver. The 1973 No Mint mark, from Philadelphia. And the 1973 S, produced in San Francisco. But within these types, there are rare variations and errors that can skyrocket a coin's value. These errors were not intentional. They happened by accident, a result of the incredibly fast and complex process of minting billions of coins. One of the most sought-after error types on a 1973 penny is the double die. This is when the die that stamps the design onto the blank planchet shifts or strikes twice, creating a slightly offset, doubled image. You might see this on the word Liberty, or in the date, 1973, where the numbers appear thick, shadowed, or like they've been written twice. If you spot one of these, don't spend it, because you may be holding something extremely rare. Then there's the off-center strike, when the coin isn't properly aligned during the minting process. Part of the design may be missing, or the rim may look oddly thin on one side and thick on the other. These dramatic-looking errors are highly collectible, and we can't forget about repunched mint marks, or RPMs. This is when the mint mark, the tiny D, or S, was accidentally punched into the die more than once, creating a visible doubling effect. In the world of error coins, RPMs from the 1970s are hot commodities, and 1973 is no exception. But wait, there's more. There are also examples of 1973 pennies struck on the wrong metal blank. Remember, pennies in 1973 were supposed to be made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams. But on rare occasions, a penny was mistakenly struck on a dime blank, which is thinner and made of a completely different metal. These rare off-metal strikes can fetch thousands, even tens of thousands, when verified by experts, and that brings us to the next point: coin grading. When it comes to collecting, condition is everything. A 1973 penny with a rare error is valuable, but a 1973 penny with a rare error in near-perfect, untouched condition? That's where the magic happens. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale. An MS, mint state, 60 means the coin is uncirculated, but it may have some marks or flaws. MS 65 and above? Now we're entering rare territory. MS 67, MS 68, or even MS 69, that's the kind of grade that turns heads at auction houses. So imagine this: someone finds a strange-looking penny in a childhood coin collection passed down from a grandparent. It's bright, reddish, almost flawless. They notice something unusual about the mint mark, a slight doubling that catches the light. They do some research, then decide to send it to a grading company. Weeks later, the results come back. The coin is graded MS 68 red with a verified repunched mint mark and doubling on the obverse. It's one of only a handful ever discovered in such pristine condition. News spreads fast. Collectors and investors take notice. A major auction house gets involved. Bidding starts. Offers are made. The price climbs. And climbs. And climbs, and finally, the final bid is accepted. That single 1973 Lincoln penny, once worth just 1 cent, is now sold for an astonishing $165,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $165,000. For a penny. It's the kind of story that sounds too good to be true. But it happens. And it could happen to you. Today, we're diving into a coin that looks simple, ordinary even, but hides a fascinating tale beneath its copper surface. That coin is none other than the 1975 Lincoln penny, minted right here in the United States. Now, you might be thinking, a penny? From 1975? What's so special about that? Well, hold on tight, because by the end of this video, you might never look at pennies the same way again. Let's take a little trip back to the mid-1970s. The year 1975 was a time of transition and tension in America. The Vietnam War was winding down, the economy was working to shake off inflation, and popular culture was buzzing with disco music and new Hollywood blockbusters. Against that backdrop, the U.S. Mint was busy producing billions of coins to keep the wheels of commerce turning, and among those were millions of Lincoln pennies. The Lincoln cent has been an American staple since 1909, and the 1975 penny was no exception, featuring Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile on the front and the iconic Lincoln Memorial on the back. But beneath that familiar design lie subtle details and fascinating quirks that collectors have been hunting for decades. In 1975, pennies were minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint marks its coins with a distinctive letter. No mint mark means Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco. But what sets certain 1975 pennies apart is not just where they were minted, but what unexpected surprises they carry. Let's talk about mint errors. You see, the minting process is highly precise, but it's not infallible. Sometimes, the dies, those metal stamps that imprint the coin's design, shift or double strike the coins. These errors create what are known as double die pennies, coins that show a shadowy doubling of the date, lettering, or even parts of Lincoln's face. The doubling can be subtle or extremely obvious, but when it's present, it transforms a simple penny into a collector's dream. There's also the intriguing phenomenon of repunched mint marks. Imagine this: the tiny D or S mint mark is stamped twice on the die, slightly off from each other, resulting in a coin that appears to have a doubled mint mark. This rare mistake is a hallmark of collectible pennies from the 1970s, and the 1975 penny is no exception. A coin with a strong, clear repunched mint mark can be incredibly valuable. Beyond mint errors, some 1975 pennies show signs of being struck on the wrong metal blanks. Usually, pennies are made of copper-plated zinc, but sometimes errors cause pennies to be struck on other metals, making them rare anomalies. Collectors treasure these off-metal errors because they're incredibly scarce and visually striking. Now, let's talk condition. The key to a coin's value isn't just rarity, it's how well it's preserved. The 1975 penny was meant to be spent, so most examples out there have been handled, worn down, and scratched over the decades. But every so often, a coin escapes circulation and remains in mint state condition, shining with original luster, free from scratches, and with every detail razor sharp. Professional coin grading companies like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to grade coins, with MS70 being perfect. An MS67 or higher graded 1975 penny with a mint error or repunched mint mark can be worth thousands of dollars. Combine rarity, mint mark, error, and pristine condition, and the value skyrockets. Imagine finding a 1975 penny with a perfectly doubled die, a strong repunched mint mark, and an MS68 grade. That's the kind of coin that causes excitement in auctions and collector circles alike. When such a coin hits the market, bidding wars erupt. Collectors from all over scramble to own a piece of history that's both beautiful and valuable, and here's the big reveal you've been waiting for: one of these extremely rare, flawless 1975 Lincoln pennies with the coveted mint mark and error details has been sold for an incredible $185,000. Yes, You heard me right. $185,000 for a single penny. It's a story that shows just how much value can be packed into the smallest pieces of metal. That tiny copper disc, once worth just 1 cent, can hold the key to a life-changing fortune. So next time you come across a 1975 Lincoln penny, don't just toss it in your jar. Examine it closely. Check the mint mark. Look for doubling or any unusual features. You might be holding the coin that changes everything. Thanks so much for sticking with us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Lincoln pennies. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more rare coin stories, and ring the bell so you never miss a treasure hunt. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and always remember, sometimes, the smallest things hold the biggest surprises.